So I'd invite you to take a moment to think about if you've been named for any saint at baptism, at first communion, or confirmation. I'd like you to turn to someone around you, maybe someone you don't know, and say, "Hello, my name is Chris, and my baptismal name was, or my first communion name was, or my confirmation name was." Take a moment. "Hello, my name is Chris. Do you remember your baptismal name? It could be the same name as you have. Did your family tell you why you were named after that saint?" And if you don't remember, that's okay. Just go home and ask someone in your family, "Why was I named Bernadette?" Or "Why was I named Joseph?" And my second question before we conclude your part of the work: in these days of All Saints, All Souls, and Halloween, I'd invite you to think of someone who has died, who you have known, whose spirit continues to inspire you. A grandparent who was kind, a teacher that was understanding, a neighbor that was welcoming, a parent, a brother, sister, someone. Who in your life, and it could be someone very close to you or it could be someone in history, who has, because of their life, spoke to you, their values, their principles, just the way they were. So go back to that person. "My name is Chris. Is there someone that you can think of that has died that you hold in your heart tonight? They inspired you. They lifted you up." We'll take a few minutes. Let us be seated. We tend to live in a world and in a church that tends to see things from a dualistic perspective, a perspective of one versus the other. A glass that is half empty or half full. We tend to live in a world and in a church that often sees God as either merciful and welcoming and kind and loving, or one who is judging and just waiting for you to cross over so he can really zap you really well. We tend to live in a world that portrays the choices we make only into that sense of empty, full, or half empty, full. These sacred days that we call All Saints and All Souls invite us to that question. Do we believe in a God who is only half with us and half away with us? Or should I have a glass that is completely full and in fact, biblically, overflowing? If you were to listen to any of the political debates, whichever debate you listen to, there is that language that becomes, "They are evil, I am good. They are perfect, I am bad." That person, those people, whatever that language is, it goes across any debate reality. And if you were to listen to the struggles that the cardinals and bishops had during the synod, you would pick up some of that too. So how do we talk about God who is most merciful, but also say, well, someone broke the rule, and so God needs to push them away. That language of how can we invite everyone to the table if somehow you or I did something wrong 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and somehow that becomes the barrier. We live in that world that tends to want to say that this cup is half empty, and some people might say it's just half full. These feast days remind us that God is always full and overflowing. These feast days remind us that not only do we remember all souls because they died, but we remember that all saints are part of the vision for all of us. Our church, biblically and theologically, believe that there's hell. We have to believe that if we're baptized Christian Catholic people. And we say that there's a purgatory. That's a little bit more up for debate, but it's there. And if you look at St. Paul, it's there. Because he was struggling with this dualism that said, well, if you have to be baptized to be saved, then someone else must be not saved. And if you have to eat the flesh and blood of the Son of Man, then those who didn't are not saved. That was the world that Paul lived in, and that was the world that the early church struggled in. And they also lived in a world that if they said, "Hi, I'm a Christian," they would be either executed in some gross, terrible way, pre-Halloween grossness. So I invite us tonight to be open to a vision of God and a vision for each of us that says, yes, there's a heaven, and there's a hell, and there's a purgatory, and our church doesn't put anyone in hell other than Satan, a cosmic persona of evil. We don't state that anyone's in purgatory, and we only declare people in heaven. That is our theological tradition. We say there's a hell, because the Bible tells us, and there's got to be this place that is, shall we say, absence of the divine. There's this place that people wait, whether that's 3 seconds on the elevator or 4 hours on an elevator, however you want to put that. But in cosmic time, a second or hour is beyond us. So today and tomorrow, we as church people, as people of faith, say that God's vision is that we would all be in the kingdom. That the glass is completely full and is flowing over because of God's love and God's mercy. We struggle with that in our own hearts sometimes. We judge ourselves worse than other people. Sometimes in our families, we judge each other. We do that as a nation when we say these people are in and these people are out. We say that even in church sometimes in the struggles of theological language of who's saved and who's not, and who's in and who's not. But at our best moment, we see that this cup is simply a reminder that what is perceived as half full and half empty, from God's eyes, from the divine's eyes, it is completely full and abundant. Now that doesn't mean that I can go off and do my own thing and hurt people and lie and cheat. We go back to those people that I asked you to think of about who inspires you. They all had human frailties, but they were all inspiring because they touched your life. They touched my life. They were people either in history that we remember and look up to, or they were people in your lives that you were married to, that they were brother or sister to. They were your parents or grandparents or aunts or uncles. Those names that we remember tonight and tomorrow on All Saints and All Souls Day were real life people like you and I. They had their struggles. They had their problems. As Pope Francis said when he declared Juniper Serra a saint, he wasn't declared a saint because he was perfect. And people knew his frailties and his historical context. He was declared a saint because in his life he did some heroic things and lifted up and believed in people in a unique way. When Pope Francis identified Moses, and then Martin Luther King, and Dorothy Day, and Thomas Merton, when he identified Martin Luther King and Lincoln as images of American society that people should live up to, he was reminding us that there are people in our generation, in our living today, who are inspiring, who are lifting us up, who are pulling us to the more, to the belief that the cup is full and overflowing. As we go about our week, I just invite us to allow the funniness and the joy of Halloween that not only gave people sweets and caricatures that were either crazy, funny, or beautiful, but may it lead us to think about these people who inspire us. People who took the gospel of the Beatitudes and made them their own. They lived them in the way they cared for you as a grandparent. They lived them as a teacher who reached out to you with mercy and compassion. They lived those Beatitudes in your experience and in mine. They might have lived in the 15th century, and maybe you were named after that person by your parents because they inspired another group of people, because they cared for the sick, they reached out to the homeless, they created schools for those who had no education. These days are meant to inspire us, to lift us up, to remind us that this is not simply an empty or a half-empty cup, but the cup of God is overflowing, is ever welcoming, is ever affirming. So in a few seconds, we're going to watch a little video that will help us move into our year of mercy as a parish community, a year in which Pope Francis invites us to recognize that this abundance of God's mercy is for all and is forever. There's no time limitation on God's mercy. There's no time limitation on God's welcoming and inviting us back. May these days of memory of saints and souls not only inspire us in our sense of spirituality, but may they also move us to do the Beatitudes, to be the Beatitude, to inspire another generation by the way we live the Beatitudes. Let us be open to the year of mercy. We invite those up in front to come and join us.
Recently, the Pope's visit to the United States enchanted our entire country and a good part of the world.
Part of his engaging personality is that he meets us where we are. And so he has planned to introduce a year of mercy beginning on December the 8th. We will begin to celebrate this and find a time of grace here in Holy Family in the next number of weeks with various themes of reconciliation. I know about reconciliation. I've been a priest for 51 years, but I've been a person for 75 years. And because I am a person, I know about reconciliation. I know it not as a confessor, but as a penitent. I know what it is to carry a grudge. It's very easy to carry a grudge, to have a wound which is not healed. I I know what it is to be rejected, to be overlooked, in the workplace to be underappreciated. I know what it is to be a student in school and to be excluded or somehow separated from the leadership or from my favorite group. And these are all the moments in which somehow we become wounded persons and we become in need of reconciliation, like a healing, a belonging, a coming home. We need to come home. For a year of mercy, we need to come home. For the season of Thanksgiving and Christmas, it's homecoming. And homecoming also involves homecoming to the living church.